Are you buying into the hype, and how do you assess this team heading into the 2024 season?
That I am buying into the hype. I'm trying to cautiously optimistically buy into the hype. I think I've been telling people I haven't been this excited about a football season since my last year. And that is because of the team that we have on paper.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello, and welcome to another 3 Mile Pod. I'm Cole Manbeck, and man, am I excited for this show, because it's game week, which means we welcome back one of our favorite guests on 3 Mile starting today, Curry Sexton, former K-State wide receiver and partner at Wildcat NIL, is with me and will be with us on 3 Mile weekly throughout college football season, just like last year. And we're going to talk a lot of K-State football on today's show and all season, while also touching on some updates with Wildcat NIL, because a lot has happened in that space since Curry was last on the show. And the return of Curry to 3 Mile, and it being game week, calls for a double pour of Holiday Distillery's Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond bourbon. So go grab a bottle from your local liquor store and stock up so you have it at your tailgate this Saturday in Manhattan, or pick up a bottle to have on stock at home for when you're watching the Cats on TV. Great K-State folks at Holiday Distillery who support us on 3 Mile and have done some collaborating with Wildcat NIL as well. So go support them for double the reason and pick up some Ben Holiday Bottled in Bond bourbon or 360 vodka if that's your drink of choice. Curry, man, how you been? How's the summer been?
Things have been good, man. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy like you are that football season is upon us, and summer's been good. It is a crazy summer. I traveled more than I typically travel and moved into a new house, and still got a full-time job and working the NIL stuff on top of that. So no rest for me this summer. So excited for football season, excited for the fall to officially be nearing.
Yeah, you've been plenty busy for sure. That's for sure. I don't know how you do it. And you have scoured the lands of Ireland for us to get us all prepared, which is 365 days away from today, right? Curry, how was Ireland?
Ireland was amazing, man. My family is very Irish, and we were supposed to take a trip there in 2020. My folks have been there a few times, and they wanted to take all of us kids there. So we ran it back this year, and shortly after we booked all the flights and all the hotels and Airbnbs, the Iowa State game was announced, and so just decided to run with it. And some of us may be going back again next year, but it's an incredible country. Can't wait to go back. We were there for 10 days, and I feel like I didn't see a quarter of what I would like to see. So really, really looking forward to it. It's a great place, beautiful country, great people. Good food, great beverages. It's a great spot.
Well, about a year from today, many of us will be in Ireland for the Cats to open their season, hopefully coming off a Big 12 championship and college football playoff appearance, and a lot of Heisman hype around a couple guys maybe on the team going into that game in Ireland next year if all comes to fruition this season. And we're going to talk plenty about this season and spend a lot of time on this show previewing the 2024 football team as we head into Saturday's opener against UT Martin in Manhattan. But before we dive in there, Curry, why don't you tell us about everything you guys have got going on at Wildcat NIL right now?
Yeah, for sure. I'll try to capture as much as I possibly can. It's been a busy 9-10 months since you and I last talked. Obviously, in January of this year, February, we became the official NIL partner of K-State Athletics, and then embarked on a really fun journey with them, where we went out and raised a bunch of money to sort of change the competitive landscape of NIL at K-State. And so, been busy, been fun. We're trying to stay on the forefront of this thing and trying to make sure K-State stays competitive with NIL as we move from this initial phase of NIL into revenue sharing, most likely within the next 13 months. And so doing everything that we can to keep us in the space there. And, a lot going on right now. We've still got our membership active and rolling, trying to increase the membership numbers there. Obviously, in the spring, we did the big campaign where we got over 1,000, unlocked a bunch of gifts along the way. We've recently rolled out the Drive for 1,600 campaign as the Cats football team strives to win 16 football games this year. We're trying to get to 1,600 members. There's some different perks and benefits associated with that right now. If you sign up at our $25 a month level, You'll get this hat, which is usually only available at 50 and up. Other perks as well. We're having member tailgates at every single home football game, which should be a blast. We're going to have, we'll be in the north, we'll be in the lawn right north of the Near Family Football Complex, right to the northeast there. We'll have food and beverages, and we'll have TVs, and we'll have, people can play college football, the video game. There'll be a lot of fun things there. So if you're not a member, get signed up so you can come to our tailgates. There are a lot of fun partnerships right now. We've got the Dara's gas station give back campaign going on again this month. So if you're in and around Manhattan at any point before the end of August, make sure you fuel up at Dara's. They donate 3 cents back to Wildcat NIL for every gallon pumped at their gas stations. If you live in Manhattan, make sure you go to WTCkansas.com and sign up for WTC Internet. If so, 10% of your first bill will be donated to Wildcat NIL. That runs through August as well. We've still got the beer partnership with Manhattan Brewing Company. So go support Manhattan Brewing Company either in their store or in your local liquor store. We've also got a fun partnership right now with Hy-Vee, where Hy-Vee is going to donate $1 to Wildcat NIL for every 4-pack of the Wabash beer that is sold at the Manhattan Hy-Vee store. So if you want to support us in multiple ways, go buy Wabash Easy Drinking Ale at Hy-Vee in Manhattan. Beyond that, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. We've got the golf tournament coming up for the second year in a row, September 12th, the Thursday before the Arizona football game. We're going to be hosting that in support of the men's basketball team again at Colbert Hills. Should be a really, really fun event. Energy should be high, being in September and the day before a big game against a new conference foe. A lot of fun. If you have any interest in getting involved in any way at Wildcat NIL, go to catsnil.com. Explore our website and see what might work for you.
Yeah, and look, I'll be candid with you guys. You see, I'm rocking the same hat that Curry. We didn't plan this. I got the Wildcat NIL hat on as well. I'm also got a Wildcat NIL shirt on as well that came with my membership package. I'm in the 1863 Club, folks. It's a $25 up month. If you get in there before the drive to 1,600 members, you're going to get this hat as part of that group for $25 a month. You're going to get this shirt. Came with a really cool koozie, some great email updates, and obviously the tremendous work that you guys are doing content-wise on YouTube as well. Some tremendous interviews, and we'll hit on that later in the show. Curry, as you've had Dylan Edwards, Jerome Tang, Avery Johnson, just now Coleman Hawkins released in the last couple of days as well. Some tremendous content. Cannot say enough good things about it. Encourage everybody to go check it out on YouTube. Cats Talk by Wildcat NIL, and we'll talk more about that in the show. But I would also encourage everybody, like if you're considering signing up for the membership, first go check it out. There's a price tier for everybody. We've talked about it before: $10 a month, $25 a month, $50, $99, and so on. Whatever you feel the need to sign up for. But some really cool prizes and things that you get for each tier that you're in. And I cannot wait to show up to the tailgate, hang out with you guys. But I would also encourage everybody to, even if you don't do the membership tier program at catsnil.com, to support the businesses that are supporting Wildcat NIL. So like you said, Curry, if you're in Manhattan and you still got enough gas to make it there, try to make it to Adaris this weekend for the UT Martin game and fill up on your gas there before you head out of town, before you head into town, etc., as you can support Wildcat NIL. And if you're looking to stock up at your tailgate, get some Wabash Ale beer from Manhattan Brewing, or go to Hy-Vee, pick it up from there, get a 4-pack. $1 goes back to Wildcat NIL for every 4-pack sold from Hy-Vee, like you said, Curry. So go do that. If at the very least, as you stock up, as you're getting some Ben Holiday bottled of Mon Bourbon, get some Wabash Ale too, and support Wildcat NIL. And look, I can just echo everything you said about the golf tournament, Curry. I mean, for the Wildcats Classic with the men's basketball team last year and the first annual event of it was an absolute blast at Colbert Hills. We were there. 3-Mall was there. You guys hit a home run with everything, and I think people should really jump on that. That's a really fun opportunity to hang out with the team, the players, have a great meal, win some prizes, play golf with your buddies, and hang out with Jerome Tang and the staff and players. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I got to ask you, Curry, and I hope I don't get you into trouble here, and you can dodge this if you want, which probably means I will try to get you into trouble. What do you think of that when you see people tweet about how wealthy Kansas State is nowadays when it comes to NIL? What's your reaction to, you got national media, everybody all over this stuff with K-State? We're the elite rich now, huh?
Yeah, that's funny. It's 12 months ago. I think we were toward the back of the pack. And so now to be even considered, in that upper echelon of NIL, sort of NIL infrastructure, spending, whatever you want to call it, I think just speaks to the level of embrace, the level of buy-in that we've had over the course of the last 9 months. I mean, you think about the first couple years of NIL, I think we were largely behind the pack. We were largely at the bottom of the Big 12. And fortunately, despite that, we were still able to have some success and still able to win a lot of football games, win a lot of basketball games, win a Big 12 championship, go to the Elite Eight. And so then when it was becoming clear that, hey, we need to either buy into this thing or get left behind, we bought in. And so we were able to, go out and raise a bunch of dollars. And really, when a lot of schools were just starting to experience donor fatigue, we were just really getting started from a larger fan base perspective. And so I think we're able to create a little bit of a competitive advantage there in year 3 of NIL. And so it's fun to see it, man. I mean, we've been working really, really hard at this thing for 2.5 years now. And for 2 of those years, we were, I joke about this, but we were in 2022 season, during football games, Ryan and Jesse and Pearson and myself were sneaking into the West Stadium Center and sneaking into and walking into people's suites and talking to them about NIL and asking them to give. And so to see it come from that to now, going to these donor events with Gene and people from the athletic department, from the Ahern Fund, Greg Willems from the KSU Foundation, to see that transform has been rewarding for us. And so to some degree, it does feel like, hey, our hard work has paid off, and we've helped K-State transform its NIL program, and that's been great to see. Excited about where our rosters are at. I think all of our rosters are in a really good spot. I think this could be a special year for K-State athletics, and NIL is certainly going to play a part in that.
Well, look, I think I speak for all Kansas State fans when we want to say thank you for everything that you've done, Curry, in transforming the image and doing all you've done to raise the money for Kansas State. Look, it's K-State fans have a lot of fun with it on Twitter and stuff and bragging about how wealthy we are. And look, that's a ton of work has went in to convince people how NIL works and in that space. And that's a huge credit to you guys working your tail off because you got full-time jobs and you're doing this on the side just in the best interest of Kansas State. And I think everybody should know it's K-Staters behind Wildcat NIL. It's guys like Curry, Ryan Hennington, former football player as well, Pearson McAtee, former men's basketball player at Kansas State, Friesen as well, former K-State football player. Like, these are K-Staters running it. And I think that's one of the things Gene Taylor talked about. He has a ton of trust in you guys and faith, the Wildcat athletic department endorsing you guys as well. So encourage everybody to go to catsnil.com and check it out. By the way, look, I got to speak out quick. My Wildcat NIL gear came here, by the way, guys. This thing ships in like one. I guess I shouldn't make false promises, but it got here very fast. Like, it was within a couple business days when it arrived. So, and it's high quality gear. Like, this shirt, really slick, sleek material, very comfortable. Hat is great. In fact, my wife saw it the other night when she got out. She's like, I like that hat. Like, I feel like she wants that. So the gear is awesome. I know you guys have done some rebranding efforts there as well, Curry, and it's tremendous stuff. And then unlock all the content, the tailgates, all the stuff that you guys are doing. It's well worth it, while at the same time supporting K-State athletes. And I think we're going to be rewarded for giving. The K-State fans are going to be rewarded this year because we should be in for a fun basketball season and football season here because of the great support of K-State fans and Wildcat NIL. All right, look, I promised you we're going to talk K-State football, and we're going to do that right after we come from break. But before we do so, we got to tell you about Home Field Apparel, a premium college apparel brand based out of Indianapolis. Home Field has some of the best K-State apparel you can find anywhere. They've got 55 K-State items to choose from on their website at homefieldapparel.com, including awesome retro t-shirts that are super soft, comfortable, several hoodies, retro K-State logos that you'll want to stock up on as we get into the fall, as well as a few hats you've seen me rock here before on the pod. Also, don't miss out on Home Field's Can't Miss Kickoff in 2024 with their exclusive college football boxes. K-State was one of 50 or so schools that was selected to be a part of this drop. The box comes with a couple of K-State shirts, an awesome retro hoodie, socks, even a hat if you want to upgrade to the platinum football box that Home Field has. All the items are exclusive to the drop. So you won't be able to buy these anywhere except if you purchase the box. Go check out the boxes and the other 50-plus K-State items at homefieldapparel.com, and we've got you covered with 15% off. Go enter discount code 3MAW24 at homefieldapparel.com, 3MAW24 when you go to checkout, and you'll get 15% off your entire order. We'll be back with Curry to talk K-State football when we come out of break.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Well, Curry, let's transition to football, and out of the gate, we kick off with our top storyline of the week, as always, which is brought to you by our friends at Elanco, a premier home improvement company based out of Kansas City, locally owned by tremendous K-Staters. Well, Curry, this K-State football team's getting a ton of hype coming off a 9-4 season. They're a betting favorite by most sites to make it to the Big 12 championship. They're viewed as a top team in the new Big 12 by most of the advanced metrics and analytics, and Avery Johnson's getting some buzz as a dark horse Heisman Trophy candidate. Are you buying into the hype, and how do you assess this team heading into the 2024 season?
That I am buying into the hype. I'm trying to cautiously optimistically buy into the hype. I think I've been telling people I haven't been this excited about a football season since my last year. And that is because of the team that we have on paper. Now, when I say cautiously optimistically buying into the hype, it's because we've, while we have a great team on paper, and if things go right, I think this could be a special season. We've also got, some question marks, I guess you could say, some areas where maybe we've got some inexperience, and we're going to have some guys step up in order for this special year to come to fruition. And so I think, there's a lot of reasons to be excited. I mean, you start with the defense and what we have coming back, and I think that alone creates a ton of room for excitement and what that defense could be. Offensively, you return several key pieces: DJ Giddens, Chase Brown, Keegan Johnson, Garrett Oakley, Hadley Panzer, Taylor Poitier. There's a lot of guys, Carver Willis. There's a lot of guys who played a lot of snaps last year. And then we've got, then there's some inexperience. I mean, we have inexperience at the quarterback position. We got to see Avery quite a bit last year, but he's still going into his first year as a full-time starter. There's several spots on that offensive line where we've got new guys, inexperienced guys. We've got, new left tackle who's coming from the FCS ranks. We've got new starting center who hasn't played a lot of snaps at this level. We're going to have some, new guys rotating in on that offensive line, and same thing on the defense at the defensive end spot. And so I think there's some, and then special teams as well. There's some inexperience there too. So I think there's some areas where we're going to have guys step up for this to be a special year, but on paper, there's reason to be buying into the hype. I think this could be a really, really good football team that could make this one of the most special seasons that we've had at K-State.
So Curry's buying into the hype and stock of K-State football. So am I, and you guys should buy into the hype when it comes to Elanco in an industry where many of the home improvement companies have been bought up by private equity. Elanco's remained locally owned by terrific K-Staters since they started in 1986. Based out of Kansas City, Elanco specializes in premium window replacements, bathroom remodels, including the Kohler Luxstone shower system, door replacements, siding on your homes, and much more. They got you covered on all your home improvement needs if you live in Northeast Kansas, Western Missouri, including Manhattan, Topeka, Emporia, KC, Wichita, and many other areas. Elanco will come to you. Go to elancohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com, or give Sam a call at 913-961-2165. Sam's a big K-Stater, and he's so dedicated to giving Wildcat fans top-notch customer support that the number I just read to you is his cell phone number. So give him a call. He'll talk directly to you about your home improvement needs and probably even discuss a little K-State football with you as well. Go support Elanco, tremendous K-Staters, owned and operated by and locally owned, and have all your home improvement needs in mind. All right, Curry, I think it's only natural to start with the offense. They're usually the more appealing group that everyone wants to talk about, gets everybody a little excited. But I actually want to start discussing the Wildcat defense, which I think is getting slept on a little bit, maybe a little overlooked. And it's a defense that allowed 1.91 points per drive in 2023, tied for the best by a K-State unit since 2013. Would have ranked third best out of the teams in the new 16-team Big 12 conference in 2024. And they were number 8 nationally in turnovers forced per game, something they've been terrific at, top 15 in the country each of the last 2 years. also ranked number 2 in the country in touchdown rate allowed inside the red zone. Is this the deepest, maybe most talented defense of the Chris Kleiman era?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think there's some pieces where, particularly the defensive end spot where we're going to have some guys step up. But otherwise, yeah, I think this is the deepest, most talented defense we've seen. I mean, start on the back end. I think you've got 5 guys back there who have NFL talent. You've got 2 corners who are being is highly touted as anybody by the staff this offseason. Jacob Parrish has been a stud since his freshman year, and Keenan Garber has transformed from a very skinny wide receiver to now a 200-pound cornerback with elite speed. And then you look at our 3 safeties, and you've got Marquise Siegel, who was one of the best players on our defense last year after he got settled in, and a guy who, if he could have caught the ball a little bit, probably could have had 5 or 6 picks. And he's going to be a guy who I think is an all Big 12 player. Then you've got BJ Payne, who's been performing well for us for 2 years now. A guy with elite abilities, great size, great speed, big time hitter. He's a guy who I think is going to take that leap. And then Jordan Riley is I think been one of the most impressive guys on the team this offseason. A guy who transferred to K-State from Ball State. Huge potential, NFL upside as well. So I think the back end, you're going to have one of the best back ends in the conference, if not the country. Linebacker, you return arguably our 2 best players from last year in Austin Moore and Des Purnell. I think both of those guys are going to be huge for us this year. Austin Romaine has apparently taken that leap that from his freshman year to his sophomore year. I think he's going to be a good player for us. You've got a lot of guys who have played a lot of games, a lot of downs at that linebacker position. And then, up front, you've got, guys like Brendan Mott, Cody Stufflebean, Damian Ilalio, Uso Siamalo, guys who have played a lot of football, who are coming back and who are going to be playing a lot for us this year. Then, that's just the front line guys. And then you start talking about the depth that we have. I think we've got 7 guys who can play for us, so meaningful downs for us at the defensive end spot. We've got 3 at the defensive tackle spot at least. We've got probably 8 or 9 linebackers who could play meaningful downs for us. And then you look at the back end, you've got, we talked about the 5 guys that I think have NFL talent. And then, you've got a guy like Colby McAllister, who played a ton of snaps for us last year as a freshman at safety. And I think he's a guy who's made that jump and is going to be huge for us in relief. You've got a couple of young guys, Wesley Fair, Jack Fabris, who I think are going to help us on the back end. And then at cornerback, I think you've got a lot of depth there. Justice James and Jordan Dunbar, who was a late ad, a great ad. Kenigel Thomas, Donovan McIntosh. There is a lot of talent and a lot of depth on that defense. And I think that, I think Coach Kleinerman said this is the best defense he's seen since he's been at K-State. And I truly feel like it should be the best defense we've had in the Kleinerman era.
Well, you talked a lot about the secondary there, Curry. And look, it's a secondary last year that ranked 14th nationally in pass efficiency defense. It's number 2 in the Big 12 behind only OU in the 2023 season. They posted their best pass efficiency numbers since the 2013 K-State team. They were best in the Big 12 in yards per pass attempt allowed. And Curry, they held teams to a 55% completion percentage last year, which is best in the Big 12, number 10 nationally, best by a K-State defense since at least 2011, but likely beyond that. And you kind of already hit on some of the things about the secondary that really stand out. So I guess I'll ask you maybe a little harder question. How would you take this group over the 2022 group that included Josh Hayes, Julius Brents, and some of the star-studded talent, Echo Boydo? I mean, those are the 3 NFL guys right there. Echo Boydo also still work out with the Chiefs. How would you compare this group to them? And do you think this group could be even more talented?
I think so. I think obviously Echo and Julius Brents at the corner position were huge pieces. But if you recall in that Big 12 championship game, 2 guys who spent a lot of time on the field were Jacob Parrish and Keenan Garber. That was the year that Keenan transitioned from receiver to corner, and yet he was still playing a lot of snaps in the Big 12 championship game. I think those are guys who, I think Jacob Parrish has as much raw ability as anybody. And Keenan Garber apparently has become a whole different football player this offseason. So I think those 2 guys can reach that Echo Boydo, Julius Brents level. And then I think we're better in the safety positions. I think, again, Marquise Siegel, came from the FCS level last year, played a lot of cornerback at North Dakota State, transitioned to that safety position. And after he got settled in, was just a force, just an incredible football player for us. And I think he's going to be even better this year. Again, BJ Payne, a guy that has made a lot of football plays for us over the last 2 seasons. I think he is going to take a huge leap forward. And then Jordan Riley, I think everybody's going to be pleasantly surprised by him. And I think those three can be the focal point of our defense, and I think can be a pretty good upgrade over that 2022 back end. And so, yes, I do think that the back end can be better than that 2022 season. I think it can be as good as any we've had at K-State recently.
Well, we had Stan Weber on about a month ago, color commentator, longtime voice for Kansas State, and he mentioned some of the value that it brings when you got two guys at corner that can lock a team down in man-to-man coverage and how difficult that makes it on an offense. And Keenan Garber and Jacob Parrish, he certainly feels, and a lot of us feel, are guys that can do that. I mean, you played wide receiver and we're terrific at it, obviously. How much harder is it to go up against a defense that has a couple corners that can lock you down in man-to-man?
Oh, it makes a world of a difference. It's kind of like it's kind of like a basketball team who's got a couple lockdown defenders who can take the two best offensive players out of the game, out of the rhythm of the game, and force everybody else to beat you. And in football, if you've got two guys on the perimeter who can lock guys down, that allows you to focus a lot of attention elsewhere, put a lot of guys in the box defensively. I can remember playing some of my years at K-State and playing some of those TCU defenses under Gary Patterson. And they would have, guys like Jason Barrett, who was a first-round NFL draft pick, Kevin White, who was a really, really good defensive back, really good quarterback. They had some of those guys who were Anthony Texada was another good player for them. They had some of those guys who they would put on an island, even against somebody like a Tyler Lockett, and say, you guard that guy, and you've got him. And that just it changes the dynamic of what a defense can do. And so I think having those guys out there, you can put a lot of faith in them to lock down their zone or their man, and free up a lot of opportunities for other guys in the defense.
What's an area that you would like to see the defense improve the most at from last year to this year?
I think getting after the quarterback. I think last year you'll have the data for me. Last year, obviously coming off of the, having Felix, we weren't efficient at getting after the quarterback. Seemed like the only time last year that we got after the quarterback was on pressures. And we have to have, and I know we switched to that 3-man front, which was a big change. You had guys who were maybe a little bit out of place in that scheme. But we've got to have guys who can just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And so I think that's something that I really want to see from this football team this year. And I think our coaches are going to do a good job of putting guys in a position to succeed on that front. And we've got some guys who can do it. I mean, again, Cody Stufflebean and Brendan Mott have played a lot of football games at K-State. Toby Asim-Sami is a kid with as much raw ability and speed, explosiveness as anybody. I think he's a guy that, you're going to count on him to go get, 5 or 6 sacks this year. Then we've got some young cats who I think are, a lot of people are expecting good, big things out of. And so you're thinking, Chidi and Jordan Allen, and Ryan Davis, those are guys, one or multiple of those guys needs to be somebody who we can count on to get after the quarterback. And then they throw Travis Bates in the mix too. And we've got to find, 2, 3, 4 guys from that group of 7 who we can count on to put pressure on the quarterback, to create turnovers, to force bad throws, to get the defense off the field. That's the biggest thing that this defense needs to improve upon from last year.
Completely agree. Which honestly, Curry, makes it all the more impressive that the secondary did what they did last year with the lack of pressure from the defense. I mean, they weren't able to get a lot of pressure up front, yet the defense really held up in the secondary. Now, I know there were some explosives. That would probably be the secondary thing that I would say they need to get a little bit better at, is minimizing some of the big plays that they allowed, especially in the passing game. But I think number one to me is also pass rate. I mean, they were 99th in the country in sack percentage last year. So that's a huge area that I think they need to get better at and be able to generate a little bit more of a pass rush, which, I mean, look, they'll be helped out by the secondary, but they can help out the secondary as well, even more, and take it to another level if they're going to be able to generate an increased pass rush. One more question on the defense, and I was going to save this for later, but I'll just ask you now while we're on the topic of the defense. Is there a guy on that side of the ball that maybe we haven't talked a ton about that you're most excited, maybe as a sleeper candidate this year, to really break out?
It's a great question. I think Asa Newsome is a guy that I'm going to throw out there. Asa was flashback to that big class that we had a couple years ago with Avery in it. He was a big gift for us, beating out Kentucky and Iowa to grab him. And he came in last year and made an impression. I mean, we saw him on special teams and on defense last year, making some plays early on in the season before he suffered that ACL injury. And he apparently has recovered nicely from that. I got a chance to see him a couple times at practice and was really impressed with how well he was moving. The coaches love Asa Newsome, sharp kid, mature kid, very talented football player. They think he's already even with the offseason recovery, they think he's already taken a step and is going to be a guy that's going to play a lot of meaningful snaps. With the way this defense plays and those three linebackers that they have out there almost every down, there's going to be a lot of guys. There's going to be 6'8" linebackers playing a lot of snaps each game. And I think Ace is going to be a guy who they're going to, rely upon to give Desmond Purnell some breathers out there. And I think he's a guy who can be a really, really good football player for us this year and in the future. So I'm really excited about Ace Newsome.
Same here, man. And he was arguably my second favorite recruit in the 2023 recruiting class behind only Avery Johnson. He was a huge recruiting win. It was a gut punch when he blew out his knee last year, but the only saving grace was that it occurred earlier in the season. The fact that it happened in late September was a blessing in disguise. You remember Kobe Savage, Curry. I mean, look, he did it in mid to late November at the Baylor game in Waco and was probably a little slow out of the gate as a result. So the fact that it happened a couple months earlier increased the recovery process and a timeline probably at the start of the season. Absolutely. I can't wait to see what Asa Newsome does. Before we transition to the offense, do want to tell everybody about the KCSN Foundation Golf Tourney that is going to occur on Saturday, September 7th. Starts at 11:45 in the morning over in Bonner Springs, Riverbank Avenue. We'd like to golf and we have some fun as well. So if you'd like to join us, get on over to Sunflower Hills Golf Course on Saturday, September 11th. It starts actually closer to noon, September 7th. I'm sorry. And we would love to see you there as the KCSN Foundation is back for the third annual charity golf tournament. It's a 4-man scramble, which was, and it's made possible by our presenting sponsor, Holiday Distillery, as we already highlighted on the show. So there's going to be some fantastic bourbon there. And since the first golf tournament in 2022, the KCSN Foundation has given back more than $100,000 to the Kansas City community with 5 community programs, which include Feed It Forward, My First Game with the Boys and Girls Club, Book Drive with Emprise Bank, Holiday Raffle, bought presents for Operation Breakthrough, Christmas Store, Therese Paylor's Scholarship, raised money there as well. So please help us continue to give to the Kansas City community by coming out and having a good time on the golf course. If you have any questions, you can email us at kcsnfoundation@gmail.com. Curry, let's transition here to the offense. How do you look, there's a lot of new bodies on the offensive side of the football. Obviously, Avery Johnson steps in at quarterback. Dylan Edwards transfers in from Colorado. They've lost a lot of guys, especially up front on the offensive line. You already hit on that. How do you kind of evaluate and assess what K-State's got on the offense, and how excited are you to see this group?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I think the potential is massive. Again, I think there's a lot of pieces that need to come together on this side. Again, you've got a young and experienced quarterback who already has massive expectations, and so I think the hope is that he starts achieving those expectations right away. But I think it's fair to expect some bumps in the road early while he gets into a groove and really gains that experience. So that's a big piece for me. And again, I think, offensive line, we return a lot of guys who have played a lot of football for us. But there's also some pieces out there that we're a little less certain. Again, Easton Kilty, by all accounts, has had a great offseason. He's a plug-and-play left tackle. I think we can expect him to hold up over there, but he's never played at this level. The speed of the game will be different for him. The size of the defenders that he goes against will be different. Sam Hecht hasn't played many snaps for us in a K-State football uniform. Flannery walk-on from Middle Valley. He's going to be the starter at center. The coaches love Sam. They say that he's an improvement from that he's an upgrade from last year. And if that's the case, then I think things could, that offensive line could be a nice transition from last year to Cooper Beebe group to this year. But again, we're missing Cooper Beebe. We're missing KT Leviston. We're missing Christian Duffy, guys who put a lot of football for K-State, a lot of good football for K-State. And so you really hope that group can come together and mesh well. And if they do, I think it could be a special year. Running back room, you got to feel really good about DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards. Obviously, DJ, we know he was a little banged up this offseason, and so hoping that he's healthy for the first game. But the Thunder Lightning combination that you have there between DJ, 1,000-yard rusher coming back for his junior season, and Dylan Edwards, one of the most electrifying players in college football, is huge potential there. And then I think the receiver group is another group where there's reason to be excited. but they're going to have to put it together. Last year we heard a lot of hype about Keegan Johnson going into the season, and unfortunately he wasn't able to stay healthy and have that level of success. Jace Brown was able to come out of nowhere and have, pretty large success as a true freshman. And so your hope is that, Keegan takes that leap, that Jace, doesn't have a sophomore slump and is able to grow a little bit. And then you're able to find some production from guys like Jaden Jackson and Dante Cephas and Trey Spivey and Sterling Lockett and some others. And then, you've got two solid tight ends in Garrett Oakley and Will Swanson. So a lot of reason to be excited about the offense, but there's a little more uncertainty on that side of the ball. And so really looking, hoping that over these first couple of games, that these guys are able to gel and get ready for the Big 12, schedule.
Yeah, I hope fans are patient, because there'll probably be some kinks to be worked out in the first couple of games, especially. And so nobody needs to hit the panic button if things don't look perfect first couple of games, because you got to remember, you got a new offensive coordinator in Connor Riley making the transition. You got a new quarterbacks and co-offensive coordinator, Matt Wells, coming in. They're making adjustments to the scheme. It's going to be a new scheme. They're trying to learn it. And you really talk about, like, DY made this point on a Patreon pod we did at patreon.com/3maw. And, there's really only two guys on this offense, Curry, that have started an entire season. And once it, Hadley Panzer and DJ Giddens. Everybody else has not started an entire season at this level. And so there is a lot of new guys. And I guess you could throw Keegan Johnson into the mix, but Keegan Johnson missed a couple of games last year and wasn't able to be himself out on the field. And then Jace Brown, he came on as the season went. But there's a lot of newcomers on the offensive side of the ball. So the defense might carry the way a little bit early on in the season, but the offense has a ceiling that if they hit, this team could certainly be special. And the offensive line, you hit on a lot of things there. Like, I try to think of it like this. I think probably by the end of last year, Carver Willis was maybe playing a little bit better than Christian Duffy. I think Andrew Lengang can be a guy that can be a really solid piece up front for them on the offensive line. Taylor Portier is an experienced guy coming back. Sam Heck could potentially be an upgrade as well at center. And if Easton Kilty can be anywhere close to KT Leviston and what he did, and I'm not saying KT Leviston was a hell of a player, really good left tackle, got drafted for a reason. But if he can be close to that, then you're talking about really the downgrade at left guard, which is a huge downgrade because it's the best offensive lineman potentially in program history. And probably people don't realize how big Cooper Beebe was from a communication aspect too. Not only how good he was as a blocker, but communicating assignments to the guys and as a leader on that offensive line. But I think they can be decent up front. I trust Connor Riley there. I want to ask you about Dylan Edwards. We know DJ Giddens is one of the most underrated players in the country, and we've talked about him quite a bit on 3maw of late. But you and me haven't had a chance to talk about Dylan Edwards on the show since he arrived at K-State. How would you like to see this staff utilize Dylan, and maybe how does he change the dynamics of this offense?
Yeah, I mean, he changes the dynamics just based on speed and speed alone. He is, one of the fastest players. He's going to be the fastest guy on the field every time he steps on there. We got a chance to see him last year play at Colorado. That TCU game, he really put the country on notice. We know what he did in high school. I got a chance to see him in practice last week, and his speed is just unbelievable. His explosiveness, his quickness, his speed is not something that we're accustomed to seeing at K-State. Or anywhere for that matter. He's just got a unique skill set. And so I think you mentioned some of the growing pains that I think we will likely see just naturally. That's another one. You're trying to fit this unbelievable offensive weapon into an offense that includes a DJ Giddens, that includes an Avery Johnson, that includes some of the receivers that you mentioned. We're gonna and he's not, people want to compare him to Deuce because of the size, but he's not Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn was 5'6" or 5'5" and 190 pounds. I mean, he had some thickness to him. Dylan is 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", and 160 pounds, 170 pounds. And so he's not a guy who we're going to run between the tackles a ton. He's got that capability, but we're not going to run through the tackles a ton. But he's a guy that you've got to get involved in the game in as many ways as you possibly can. He's going to return punts. He's going to return kicks. He's going to line up in the backfield with DJ, just with Avery. And then he's a guy who's going to line up all over, split out. I mean, he's a guy who they're going to motion in and out of the backfield. He's going to line up in the slot. He's going to line up out wide. You just have to find a way to get him the ball as many times as you can and get him the ball in space, because if he gets an ounce of space, he's going to be off to the races. And so I think he's he's sort of that jack of all trades type, Swiss Army knife that we haven't really had over the past couple of years in terms of his ability to affect the game in multiple different ways. And I think if the coaches can find a way to integrate him into this offense with some of those other pieces, he's going to have a massive year for us.
What kind of challenges can a backfield of Avery Johnson as shotgun and quarterback with split back set of DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards put on edge defenders at a defense? Like, what are some of the things that K-State could do schematically that's going to put a ton of pressure? Like, I think about read options, but also I think about pop passes or RPOs and pulling the ball, but you could get Avery and Dylan on the edge or have DJ going up the middle. Like, there's so many different reads that they could do out of that. Like, I'm just curious from your perspective, having played offense and you're a bright mind, Curry, what type of pressure does that put on a defense?
Huge. I mean, even just having those three guys on the field together is going to put a ton of pressure on the defense, but having them line up in the backfield is going to create a bunch of havoc in a defensive coordinator's mind. Because not only can all three of them run the ball at any given moment, but we've seen that DJ is a very capable wide receiver. And we know that Dylan is as well. And so you're going to have, the coaches, Coach Riley, Coach Wells are going to have a ton of options at their disposal when they line those three up in the backfield. I think the most natural, thing that comes to mind is just, the read option, triple option. I mean, DJ on sort of a dive or off tackle run, and then Avery running a read, and then Avery and Dylan running an option, and all three of those guys being an option on a play. That kind of that modern triple option type run play is something that I think is going to give defensive coordinators fits. And then you mentioned some of the ways that, those guys can, either through RPOs or through just routes out of the backfield, putting those guys on linebackers, putting Avery or putting DJ, putting Dylan on angle routes against a linebacker, 230-pound guy. You're going to create massive mismatches. You think about seam routes or wheel routes to these guys out of the backfield. Again, putting them on a bigger, slower defensive guy. I think you're going to put defenses in a lot of precarious positions when you have those three on the field together at once. And I think the possibilities are really fun to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you just brought up like the triple option, and then I think back to like the Nebraska days under Crouch, when Eric Crouch was a quarterback, and K-State did this some too, where they ran the triple option pass, where they drop back, fake the option, drop back. I mean, you could do that with Avery and Dylan after you fake the dive with DJ Giddens and then have it look like you're running the option, and then Avery pops back and throw. The defense is going to cheat up with the speed and the threat of Avery and Dylan Edwards. Man, you could do some fun things. I'm salivating thinking about what Matt Wells and Connor Riley are going to bring to this offense. Now, I don't expect to see the full playbook on Saturday against UT Martin. So some of that, folks, you're probably going to have to wait on for some of the bigger matchups. But anyways, we'll get to that later in the season and discuss it more. Maybe one more, Curry, and then we're going to get to our rapid fire questions to put a wrap on this show and get some of your season predictions. But you had Dylan Edwards on the pod on the Cats Talk by Wildcat NIL, which, by the way, quote tweeted by Dion, Coach Prime, quote tweeted it. 130,000 plus views, Curry, on that YouTube show. Congratulations. You do a hell of a job in the interviewing, a fantastic show that you guys put on, tremendous content. I'm just curious from your perspective, like what stood out? Maybe what was something that really stood out from Dylan when you interviewed him?
For sure. And thanks for your kind words. Obviously it's been a new venture for us and for me, and it's been fun. And it was fun to see that Edwards pod go crazy. I had no idea what that sort of Coach Prime, that Coach Prime factor would have, or influence it would have. And so, I was thoroughly impressed with Dylan's maturity. Obviously he's been a guy that we've all followed intensely for the last 3-4 years, through his recruiting process, through his first season and a half at Colorado, and now into his first off season at K-State. We followed the guy intensely. And so there's been a narrative about him that I think is unfair. And he is, you could see it in that podcast. He's a mature guy. He's got a humility to him that I don't think people give him credit for. He's a smart, he's an intelligent guy. I think he understands the bigger picture, which is really impressive. Here's a guy who massive recruit, have some serious success in his freshman year at Colorado, a program that was getting as much attention as anybody during that season. And he comes back home to K-State, the school that he previously decommitted from to go elsewhere, to play with Avery and to play with a DJ Giddens in an offense that had a lot of established playmakers. And, it's, from by all accounts, it's not been about Dylan. He's not made anything about him or trying too hard to make an impression. His goal from day one has been to fit in, find my role, fit in, impact the game however I can. And I think that's been the most impressive thing, because, again, he is coming into a room where we've got a 1,000-yard rusher, a guy who's going to get a ton of carries. And so I think by all accounts, Dylan has been thoroughly impressive to everyone in terms of his approach, his off the field approach, and the way he's jived with the locker room. So thoroughly impressed with Dylan in that podcast, and I've been impressed with him, in all of my dealings with him. And I think he's going to be a guy that is going to, fans are going to love him on the field, and they're going to love him off the field. He's got great personality. He's a fun kid. I think there's a lot to be excited about there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thoroughly impressed with everything that we have heard about Dylan Edwards since he arrived in Manhattan. He seems to have really embraced the K-State culture in this program. And, I think people got to remember the recruiting process. It's hard on these kids. And, being a 17, 18-year-old going through it, there maybe were some bitter feelings from some. But, put yourself in his shoes and the situation that occurred. And I think he's fully embraced Kansas State and cannot wait to see what he brings to the football field. I think he's going to be a leader for this football team by the end of it all as well. So really excited for that. We're going to dive into rapid fire here and get some of Curry's on the record predictions here for the football season. We did our over-unders on a KCSN pod on 3MA a few weeks ago. John and DY maybe gave me a little bit of a hard time for some of the numbers that I said. So I'm going to get some of Curry's numbers here, and we'll lock it in and keep track of how these goes. I would be remiss, though, before I say this and we dive into this real quick. I mentioned some of the other K-State businesses that are supporting Wildcat NIL, and I have to give a shout out to our friends and guys and girls at Riverbank Brewing in Council Grove. You guys heard the show that we did last year, the player interview pod last season, all year, each week during the season, that was brought to you by Riverbank Brewing in conjunction with Wildcat NIL. That is returning for 2024. So go check out Riverbank Brewing in Council Grove. I mean, I'm telling you folks, I've been there numerous times. It is awesome. The patio is amazing. Hang out on the covered patio, plenty of TVs. You got the river kind of flowing by you. Just a beautiful setting. You can watch some college football there. Go check them out. They also put on an amazing concert just recently in Council Grove. I know a lot of the people I follow on social media were there and enjoying some of the live music that Riverbank Brewing helped put on. Jesse, a tremendous K-Stater, Deidre as well, and the other folks at Riverbank Brewing. So go support them and be on the lookout for our first player interview pod this week on 3MA. All right, rapid fire, Curry. Give me your prediction on K-State's record by the end of the season. What do you got?
Regular season?
Regular season, sure.
All right, I'm going 11-1. I don't know who we lose to, but we lose one.
Okay, all right. I was going to ask you which game on the schedule concerns you most. Like, have you given that?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple. I mean, Tulane early on the road is that scares me. Arizona on a Friday night after that Tulane game scares me. Oklahoma State, we've had some trouble with them over the last several years. That one's going to be tough. BYU, I think, is a little bit of a trap game. West Virginia on the road, that's going to be a good football team. KU, and then Iowa State. I mean, those are the games that stand out as games that are going to be difficult wins. And so, but if you had to pick one, I'm going the West Virginia game on the road. I think where it is in the season and in relation to other games, I think there's, that's going to be a difficult road test. So if I have to pick one, I'm going to go with that one.
Same. I have West Virginia. I have K-State at 10-2. I had West Virginia as a loss. The spot is a really hard one. You go from playing in Boulder at Colorado, which will be a hyped matchup, to then going to Morgantown, and then you got KU on the rise on your in-state rival right after that. That's a tough ask. And this West Virginia team coming off a 9-win season with a lot of returning experience back. So very similar to me. Iowa State is probably the other one for me that's a big concern at the end of the year as the Cyclones play their Super Bowl against Kansas State. And I noticed you didn't say, did you say Oklahoma State? I don't think you said, did you say Oklahoma State?
Oh, man. I said we've had, I think, I don't know, 1-3 against them in the last 4, something like that. record isn't great against them, other than the big blowout in 2022. We've not had a bunch of success against them. I think they're a team that could go a lot of different ways this year. I mean, obviously the Ollie Gordon, some of the offseason stuff, the injury, the arrest. I think it's hard to say what that team looks like, and obviously we play them at home, but that's still a team that we've struggled with over the last couple of years.
I only asked you, I pushed you on the Oklahoma State thing because it's been a fun, conflicting topic on 3-Maw. Curry, if you've heard, I've been really down on Oklahoma State, considering them to be a fraud from last year, and I think K-State's going to win that game by 2+ scores. And John and DY have Oklahoma State, I think, winning the Big 12. So it's a huge debate. I will say
somebody's got to be wrong.
Yeah, it'll be them. To be fair, I will say that Chris Kleiman has lost. I think people don't realize he's 1-4 against Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, but one was the pandemic season at home, right? So you didn't really get the true home atmosphere. So Chris Kleiman's had to play 3 out of 4 games really on the road in Stillwater in tough matchups, comparatively to only getting one true home game against Oklahoma State. And in that one true home game with the capacity crowd, K-State beat the doors off of Oklahoma State 48-0. So I will say that as a caveat to maybe defend Chris Kleiman there and hope that he can make it 2 wins against Mike Gundy this upcoming season. So do you have K-State winning the Big 12, Curry?
I do, yeah.
All right. Against who?
Utah.
All right.
Easy. I'm going chalk.
Well, look at us. We are so aligned. That is exactly what I've got. All right. All right. Over under receiving yards for Keegan Johnson. I set it at 700 yards. What do you got? He had 270 or 227 last year, I think, Curry is what he had.
I'm going under. I think Keegan's going to have a great year. I think he had 227 yards last year. Obviously missed some games, didn't play a lot in some of the games that he played in. I look at Malik Knowles in 2022. He had 725 yards and a pretty good season. And I think getting to that point would be a really great season for Keegan. And I think he's going to have a great year, but I don't see him getting over 700.
Yeah. Well, it's a great number because, 725 is the most by a K-State receiver since Curry Sexton and Tyler Lockett, actually, in 2014. Yeah, man. I'm sure you'd like to see that be broken and see another 1,000-yard receiver join the club. You're winning nine wide receivers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting. I tell people because that year there were 2, and people think, 1,000 yards isn't that difficult. Well, it is, and I'm not saying that we achieved something incredibly great. That year, we really, if you look at our statistics, we threw the ball a lot. We had 2 primary receivers. There wasn't much else out there. I mean, we had some guys who had a couple hundred yards here and there. But if you look at this year's team, who will probably not throw the ball as much as we did because of some of the options they have running the football. But you've got a ton of weapons. I mean, you've got the 6 receivers that we talked about who I think are all going to play. You've got 2 tight ends who are going to catch passes, and Garrett Oakley, Will Swanson, maybe Braden Lofton too. And then you've got 2 guys out of the backfield who are going to catch a lot of balls. So there's just not going to be that intense focus on 1 or 2 guys in the offense. So getting up to that 800, 900, 1,000 yards is it's really difficult. Especially when you're talking about a 12-game regular season. So I think Keegan in the 600 to 700 yard range, I think would be a great season.
Look, if you told me right now that I could get 600 yards from Keegan Johnson, I'd take it. I mean, I think K-State's got enough weapons where if you give me that and he's healthy enough to give you 600 yards this season, I think they got plenty of other guys that can deliver, and that would be a huge asset to this offense. So I guess I feel like I probably know where you're going with this next one then. I'm going to ask you about Jace Brown. Jace Brown, keep in mind, most yards ever by a true freshman at Kansas State last year at wide receiver with 437 receiving yards, 3rd most by a freshman overall, including redshirt freshmen. When you look at Tyler and Kevin Lockett, or Aaron and Kevin, produced the top 2 seasons in school history as redshirt freshmen. So Jace averaged 16.5 yards per catch last year, which led the country among true freshmen as well. I set the over-under Curry at 825 yards. I feel like you're going to take the under based off what you said and all the weapons K-State has.
I am, but I think it's going to be really close. Obviously he got about 450 last year, and he didn't play the whole season. Really didn't burst onto the scene until Big 12 play. And it became, the top weapon. And I think he and Avery are roommates. They're best friends. There's an obvious rapport there. I think he's going to be a guy, with his speed in the slot is going to give defenses fits. I think he's going to get really close, but I don't think he's eclipsing 825.
Okay. Couple fun ones here to wrap up. Will Howard had 2,994 total yards last year. That's between rushing and passing. That was the ninth most in school history for a single season. Josh Freeman is number 5 in 2008 with 3,349 yards. I set the over-under total yards for Avery Johnson, which is including rushing and passing, at 3,400. That would be the 5th most in a season in school history. That's a lot to put on a guy's shoulders who started one game at quarterback. But what are you taking? Over-under on 3,400 total yards for Avery?
Man, I'm going over. I think, you under, I think when you look at like what Will did last year, you underestimate what Avery's running ability can do to a number like that. I think he's a guy who could easily have 800 yards rushing and 2,700 yards passing. He's going to be the focal point of the offense. He's got a skill set that we have never seen at K-State. I think if he can stay healthy, he's a guy who's going to break a lot of records. And so I'm going to go over. I think he's going to have a tremendous year. And I think he's going to go, he's going to be well above that 3,400 yard mark.
I love hearing that. I'm excited to see where that goes. I think I accidentally had Avery like breaking the school record, Curry, for single season passing yards at one point when I was modeling this. As you know, your friend and former teammate Jake Waters owns that mark in the 2014 season. That's some pretty lofty numbers. I think it was 3,500, and I believe Jake is actually the number one all-purpose or total yards at 3,900 plus in that 2014 season.
Yeah, he couldn't even run.
Jake, I know you're throwing that in there, hoping Jake will hear that. So
I'll send it to him. I'll send it to him.
We'll clip it now.
But Jake can run a little bit, but he was not even close to the ground threat that Avery is. And now obviously Jake was a 5th-year senior, polished passer. He had one of the best receivers in school history, the best in my opinion. And so there's a different dynamic there, but I still think Avery, with his running ability, with his throwing ability, and some of the weapons that he has on the outside, I think he's a candidate to be in that 3,600 range.
Awesome. DJ Giddens ran for 1,226 yards last year. Curry, does he surpass that in 2024? You think he finishes a little under that just because they got so much more from a rushing standpoint with Dylan and Avery?
Yeah, I think he finishes under, and I think he's going to have fewer carries. I think there's multiple reasons for that. One, I think we know he was a little banged up this offseason. I think they're going to ease him into his workload early on in the year, and so he's not going to get a bunch of carries in the non-conference games. I don't think. I mean, maybe the Arizona game, but the first 2 games, I think you're going to see him in that 15 carry range. And then you've got a different assembly of weapons on the offense this year. I mean, Avery is going to carry the ball more than Will did. Dylan Edwards is going to carry the ball more than our backup running backs did last year. I think you're going to see Jimmy White and Joe Jackson out there getting carries. And so there's just a different dynamic to this offense than there was last year. And so I think DJ is going to be as productive without having as many rushing yards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And this is one of my favorite ones right here. I'm curious for your thoughts. Does Dylan Edwards reach 1,000 receiving and rushing yards combined?
I'm going to say no, just because I think it's going to take some time to integrate him into the offense. I think if you would have said, 1,000 or 1,200 or well, obviously more than 1,200, if you would have said a number that included all-purpose yards, I probably would have taken the bait. But I do think, again, it's going to be, it's going to be, we're going to have to find that right dynamic, that right balance, with Dylan and his involvement in the offense, and obviously trying to integrate him in with those receivers and also with DJ and Avery in the backfield. And so, again, another guy could have a great season, going to be a huge weapon for us, going to score some touchdowns, going to be huge in the return game. But I think 1,000 receiving rushing combined is a little bit higher than what we'll see Dylan end up at.
Who leads K-State's defense in sacks?
That's a great question. I'm going Toby. I think, again, I think Brendan Mott is gonna rebound from a 1 sack season last year and get closer to his 2022 total of 6 or 6.5, whatever it was. But I think, I think last year was a good learning experience for our defensive staff. They understood that, hey, this 3-man front works in a lot of ways, but it also it handicaps us a little bit in our ability to rush 3-4 guys and get after the quarterback. And I think they're going to make some changes, and I think they're going to find ways to let guys get after the quarterback. And we saw some of that from Toby last year, and we've heard a lot about him. And he's put on a lot of weight. He's focused simply on that defensive end position this offseason, not playing any stand-up linebacker. he's a guy who, in obvious passing situations, he's going to get a lot of snaps and he's going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And so I think he's going to be one of those guys who he's not going to play as many snaps as Mond or Steffel Bean or Travis Bates or some of those other guys, but he's going to perform significantly in the sack space just because of his explosiveness, his twitch. I think Toby's going to have a big year for the Cats.
Freak athlete, and he was my pick as well, Curry. I mean, people forget, Duke led K-State last year with just 6 sacks, and I think 3 or 4 of them came in non-conference play. Like, K-State really did struggle to get after the passer last year. They've made some adjustments up front, some tweaks, and now Toby, not only being a freak athlete, but being able to spend the entire offseason playing D-end and practicing. And Joe Klanderman told us that on the pod as well, that he had not worked out with the D-ends until this offseason, and so that's been a huge help for him. I think he brings a different skill set. And then Jordan Allen is a guy that I think could maybe come on as the season goes as well. Talented redshirt freshman. Ryan Davis as well. We've heard a lot of buzz there, so cannot wait to see that. Do you have a score prediction for UT Martin?
Whew, that's a good question. I'm going to go 45-10. It seems reasonable. I think it's going to be good weather. We're looking at 80, 85.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of, young guys with some nerves but I think the defense will hold them to 0 or 3 until late in the game, and the offense will have their way, and wouldn't be surprised to see a touchdown in the return game. I think one thing that we didn't get to talk much about in this segment of special teams, and obviously we've got Tennant coming back, which is great. I think he's going to have a great year. A little bit of uncertainty at the punter position. I think, Simon McClannon's going to be the guy there. And then, something that has been flying under the radar, is that you've got, not only do you have Dylan, but you've got a special teams coordinator this year in Nate Kasher. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Katzer, yeah.
A guy who's spent a lot of years in the NFL. And a guy who everybody has fallen in love with in the football program. Crazy high energy, a ton of football knowledge. Our special teams has slipped a little bit over the last couple of years, has not been the factor that it used to be, and I think he's going to return it to what it was. I got to watch a couple practices and watch him out there with the guys. He's got high energy, he's got positive energy. I think the guys are going to want to play for him, and I think he's bringing back a more intense focus on special teams than we've seen in the past, and so I think expect more from our special teams this year. Despite some of the turnover at some of those core special team spots.
Yeah, look, I already kept you over an hour, Curry, and I felt bad enough about that. And you bring up special teams, and I do feel like we probably did it injustice, but me not bringing it up enough. But it's a great point. Like, if you look at Brian Fremount's special teams rankings, his FEI special teams rankings last year's unit was the worst special teams unit by a K-State unit since 2010, when they were 48th in the country. They were 47th. Last year in 2023, K-State ranked 115th in the country in kick return efficiency last season and 53rd in punt return. Curry, I don't even think they had, if I recall correctly, a kick return over 40 yards last season, which is nuts to think about.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my last over-under, which is actually a special teams. I'm going to set the over-under for special teams touchdowns, which, keep in mind, last year was only the second time since 2005 K-State didn't have a special teams touchdown.
Wow.
They had the 2-point conversion, obviously, with Keenan Garber returning it against KU, which was a huge play. And there was a blocked punt by Shane Porter at Texas, which was big. But there were probably more mishaps than successes on special teams last year. I think we can all agree with that. With Dylan Edwards now in the fold and some of the maybe, Nate Katzer at special teams coach, I'm setting the over-under for special teams touchdowns this year at 2.5. It's a pretty high number, to be honest. Like, what are you taking?
I'm going over. I feel good about it. I think you're going to see a couple return touchdowns, and I think you're going to see a block punt get returned for a touchdown. I think we're going to have a good unit. We've got a lot of guys who have played a lot of special team snaps. I mean, you start thinking of guys like Bo Palmer, even Asa Newsome last year in his few games. Mikey Bergeron's a young kid from Kansas City who I think is going to be a core special teamer. Jed Deneen is a guy who's played a lot of special team snaps. Ty Bowman is a guy who's played a lot for us on special teams, a guy who's been around for 3, 4, 5 years now, and is going to be that kind of special teams guru that we had last year with Seth Porter. I think there's a lot of core guys there that go unnoticed, and then you throw Dylan into the mix. I think you're going to see a couple return touchdowns, maybe one in the punt fashion, one in the kick return fashion, and then I think you're going to see a block punt. So I'm taking 3. I'm getting aggressive. Again, we've been a giant in the special teams arena for the last 25 years. With a few down years, and I think we're going to return to that form this year, and that's going to bring a new dynamic to this team. And you think about you mentioned the lack of kick return success last year, and just think about what that does for a football team. To have success in the return game and putting the offense in good situations, putting them in positive positive yardage situations from the start of a drive. It makes a world of a difference. If you're always starting, in your own, if your starting field position is always, between your 10 and your 40, you've always got a long ways to go. So I think you're going to see a lot of positive yardage situations from our return game. It's going to really, really help our offense this year. So excited about it. I'm taking the over. I think Dylan is going to be a massive weapon for us in the return game.
I love it, man. And when you think about last year, you had 4 losses, all 4 decided by 1 score or less. How impactful would a special teams touchdown been in any of those games, or an explosive play there that could have changed the course of last season if you get just a couple of those. So I cannot wait to see what happens. I cannot wait to see what happens this season. And I can't wait to do this weekly with Curry, though. Curry, I promise you're not going to have to take a PTO day to take the whole show, because, we went over an hour here for episode 1 of the 2024 season. You have my commitment that I'm not going to do that to you again.
Okay.
There was plenty to talk about here as we preview the season. I know our listeners love hearing from you, and hope everybody enjoyed the show as we preview the 2024 season. It's game week. We are a few days away from the season opening kickoff. Like Curry said, it's going to be beautiful weather in Manhattan this weekend, so cannot wait. Get on out there. Hope to see some of you. Make it on over to the Wildcat NIL tailgate. If you are a Wildcat NIL member, go to catsnil.com. Check out all the great things they're doing there. Go to Riverbank Brewing in Council Grove, check out them, and support all the businesses that are supporting Wildcat NIL, and including homefieldapparel.com. Go there, discount code 3MAW24, get 15% off, and Elanco for all your home improvement needs. For Nick Springer behind the scenes producing this show, and Curry Sexton for being such a gracious member with his time, I'm Cole Manbeck. Thank you for listening to another episode of 3MAW.